Have you ever thought about what happens when your biggest partner is also your biggest rival? In the world of high-stakes tech, this isn't just a weird thought experiment. It's a real-life strategic nightmare that actually forced one of the biggest companies on the planet to completely rethink its most important product, the iPhone. So, here's how we're going to break down this incredible story. First, we'll get a handle on the core problem. Then, we'll walk through Apple's bold solution. After that, we'll dig into the massive advantage they unlocked, look at other ways companies deal with this puzzle, and finally, see how the whole situation has flipped on Apple's original partner. All right, first up, the Frenemy Dilemma. This is all about that messy, complicated space where cooperation and competition crash into each other. Let's just boil it down to a really simple question. Imagine you've invented something totally game-changing, a real secret sauce. Now, would you hire your #1 competitor to make it for you? Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's the exact spot Apple was in. And this says it all. Back in the 2010s, Apple and Samsung were in these absolutely brutal, very public patent wars over their smartphone designs. But, and this is the crazy part, at the exact same time, Apple was paying Samsung billions of dollars to build the A-series chip. The literal brain of the iPhone. This created a huge conflict of interest and, of course, a massive risk that their secrets could leak. This whole situation actually has a name. It's called the Frenemy Dilemma. It's that super uncomfortable, contradictory place you're in when you have to rely on a company you're also trying to beat. Strategists have a cool term for it: co-opetition. Okay, so to really get how Apple got out of this jam, you have to understand a really key difference in the chip world. On one side, you have IDMs, which stands for Integrated Device Manufacturers. Think Samsung or Intel. These guys design and build their own chips for their own products, but they also build chips for other companies. Then on the other side, you have what are called pure-play foundries, like TSMC. These companies have only one job: to manufacture chips that other companies design. That's it. They don't have their own competing products, so they never ever compete with their customers. And believe me, that distinction changes everything. So, how did Apple use this to solve its problem? Well, that leads us right into their brilliant strategy, a move we're calling the Great Migration. For years, Apple was totally dependent on Samsung. All the way up to the A8 chip, Samsung was the one and only manufacturer. But then, things started to change. With the A9 chip, Apple started testing the waters, splitting the work about 50-50 between Samsung and that pure-play foundry, TSMC. And then, with the A10 chip, they made the full jump, a 100% exclusive deal with TSMC that's still going strong today. You can see that incredible shift right here on this chart. Look at the blue line. That's Samsung's share. It starts at a solid 100%, and then it just falls off a cliff. At the same time, the red line, TSMC, skyrockets to take its place. This wasn't just some minor supply chain adjustment. It was a massive strategic pivot to solve the Frenemy Dilemma for good. So, why would Apple bet the entire future of the iPhone, one of the most valuable products in history, on TSMC? Well, it all came down to one thing, one incredibly valuable asset: trust. This is the absolute heart of the pure play advantage. TSMC's whole business model is built on one simple idea: being a completely neutral partner. They're kind of like a fortified Swiss bank, but for intellectual property. Their promise is simple, but it is so powerful. We will never, ever be your competitor. So what did this mean for Apple? Well, it meant they got a partner with a zero competition policy that guarantees a totally unbiased relationship. They got ironclad security for their precious chip designs. And they got a partner that was completely obsessively focused on just one thing: being the absolute best chip manufacturer on the planet. For a company as secretive as Apple, this was basically the perfect solution. But here's the interesting thing. Apple's migration strategy is just one way to solve this kind of problem. It turns out there are actually a few different playbooks companies can run when they're in these tricky co-opetition situations. And the sources we're looking at lay out 4 main strategies for dealing with the Frenemy Dilemma. So first up is migration, which is exactly what we just saw: Apple ditching its rival Samsung for the neutral TSMC. The second path is a spin-off. This is where you legally separate the part of your business that's causing the conflict. A great example is Samsung Foundry, which acts like its own company, though people still wonder how independent it really is. Third, you have siloing. Think about Amazon here. Its cloud service, AWS, provides the backbone for competitors like Netflix, while its own Prime Video is trying to beat Netflix. They manage this with incredibly strict internal firewalls to keep the data separate. And finally, there's the hybrid approach. That's a company like Intel, which might outsource some of its production to TSMC right now, while it works on building up its own foundry business for the long haul. And that brings our story right back to where it started, with Samsung, the very company whose business model created this whole dilemma for Apple in the first place. You see, after losing the most valuable chip contract in the world, partly because of that built-in conflict of interest, Samsung is now facing the exact same question from all its other potential customers. Hey, can we really trust a foundry partner that also competes with us in other areas? And this isn't just some academic debate. No, this is a very real and very public conversation. There's this constant chatter that the only way Samsung can truly go head-to-head with TSMC in the foundry game is to formally spin the whole unit off, creating a truly independent, pure play of its own. This picture just perfectly captures Samsung's modern problem. Inside the company, you've got the executive being haunted by this conflict of interest monster. And then right outside the window, there's TSMC's untouchable castle, built entirely on pure play trust. Now, a spinoff hasn't actually happened yet, but the pressure is definitely building because the market has made it crystal clear that trust is a currency worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So it leaves us with this final, massive question for the entire tech industry. As all the gadgets in our lives get more and more complex, more interconnected, what's going to win out in the end? What's the more valuable strategy? The raw power of having everything under one roof, or the incredible power that comes from absolute trust?